Hey, it's Mazzy and welcome back. This is one of those videos I didn't want to do because I don't want to talk about one-steps. I'm not a fan of one-steps and boxes and single records and boxes, but they sucked me in. It wasn't FOMO. It was because this is one of my favorite albums. This is k.d. lang's Ingenue, the record from 1992. A beautiful, soaring, well-recorded record, you know, maybe with country roots, but it's more than that. It's not a country record. It's a record that came out in the height of the CD era, and every version of this record sounds great. Now, the original CD was cut by Chris Bellman. In 1992, there was a German-only vinyl press, the only vinyl issue up until 2017. That was cut from a digital source, rare record. I've never heard it, apparently it sounds good. But in 2017, None Such put out this 25th anniversary version, which is an excellent vinyl version of this record. It has a second disc of unplugged concerts. So for $35 or so, this is still available. This is a magnificent sounding album, cut from digital, also by Chris Bellman. I highly recommend this if you like this record, or if you want a vinyl version of record and want something for a really good, right in the pocket price. I highly recommend this. And of course, because sound matters, it's the offshoot One Step limited edition of Warner Music. Ingenue, One Step, k.d. lang, 1992. I'll get into this with the slipcase, but first I want to go back in time and just give you a little taste of my k.d. lang collection and how I love her. I got into her in, I'd say, 87 or so when this album came out, k.d. lang and the Recliners. This is a magnificent kind of kick-ass country with a little bit of country rock, produced by the great rockabilly pub rock artist Dave Edmunds. What a wonderful record this is. And I saw her at the Fillmore very soon after this was released, and really she captures her audience. She brings them in. Great performer, great vocalist, her vocals soar. In a way, you know, this was just the beginning of what her career would be and what her musical expansion would be. But I just love this record on Sire Warner. This is probably my second favorite album. This is the Owen Bradley Sessions, k.d. lang, Shadowland. This is from 1988. This is a magnificent record. Now, Owen Bradley, the great Nashville producer of the studio he owned called Bradley's Barn. All these great country records were made there. He produced the great records of Patsy Cline. And k.d. lang and Patsy Cline, she has that same DNA where, you know, people kind of will call Patsy Cline a country artist, but she was always so much more than a country artist. And it's the same with k.d. lang and her beautiful vocals and the great songs and arrangements. And I love the opening track on here. It's a cover of Chris Isaak's Western Stars. I believe that's from his first Silvertone album. I just love, there's a picture of Owen Bradley and k.d. lang. There's a great rendition of the classic ballad, bluesy, soulful song, Black Coffee. Billie Holiday, you know, and so many other people have covered that song. I just love it. This is an amazing, amazing record. This deserves a reissue if it's not available already. Then just to go through a few others, there's Absolute Torch and Twang with these great heroic photographs, cover art on these records. And the only other vinyl album I have came out just in the last few years, which is a really interesting record, brand new collection of classic remixes. Now, a lot of her best songs were remixed on 2 records. This is put out on None Such Records as well, with a very unlikely cover photograph by the great photographer David LaChapelle. And this is not how people see k.d. lang, but it's such a beautiful shot, taken in 1995 and repurposed for the cover of this record. Now, also check out that great photograph from, was it the late 80s, early 90s, of the supermodel Cindy Crawford in the giving a shave to k.d. lang in the barber's chair. Hilarious, and what a great yin-yang type of image. Also, but you know, she is an artist, came out up through the CD era. Invisible Summer, wonderful record. All these designed by Smog Design, Jerry Hayden at Warner Brothers, and then at Smog Design, All You Can Eat, Drag. And then she goes to None Such, and Watershed. I think there's a couple of I'm missing. And then there is the great trio album of Nico Case, Katie Lang, and Laura Beers. I wish they'd done more of these, very in the tradition of the Linda Ronstadt, Dolly Parton, Emmylou Harris record. A wonderful trio of three great vocalists that cross over in the sort of the indie, folk, and country genres. This is a fabulous record as well. This was on Anti Records. But let's talk about this. Let's talk about this, and let's talk about this. I did do a comparison of this record because I almost didn't buy this record. I was sucked in by watching that live stream, Steve Westman's live stream with Michael Fremer, with Chris Bellman, with Tom Grover Beery for Sire Records, who's the person who puts these wonderful packages together. And it was an interesting discussion. Michael Fremer raved about this in his review. And I don't usually like to read reviews if I'm gonna kind of go through. But however, I wasn't gonna get this. I resisted getting this, and that sucked me in. It wasn't FOMO. It's not because it's a one-step, 3,000 limited copies. I'm number 2604 on the tail end. This is where instead of the 3-step process, they use one, and it's basically generations less than we would normally get. Now, I have been very suspect of my experience with the one-steps, the small batches that Kraft does. I've had 4 of them. One of them I absolutely love, and the other 3, I have other albums and other versions I felt are better. Again, I am usually not a fan of the box set. Now, this is a $99 release. I happen to have a credit with one of the retailers, so I got it for $84. Still, in theory, it's always to everyone a $100 record. I don't think many records are worth $100 personally, so I'm coming at from that side. I understand the whole process of limited, and I understand the process of audiophile, but we know from the Rhinos, we know from Chad's Bluesville with Kraft, we know you can get great sounding records, great analog cut records with beautiful covers from $35 to $40. We know that's the case. Even MoFi, $49 to $59, unless it is a one-step. I don't think the one-step and some of these super vinyl formulas really bring that out. Now, this is an extremely quiet pressing. The pressing is excellent. Here is the slipcase. I don't think it's worth it for this type of extra. I don't think you need this. A beautiful Stoughton cover. This is not the glossy style of Stoughton, but I think they did an excellent job here reproducing this. This is a grainy image. That's the way it was intended. That's the way it's photographed and processed. Again, a perfect record. To me, this would be enough, even without the one-step. This deserves to have an all analog cut by Chris Bellman. Chris Bellman did an excellent job, and he has the experience. He's done all these versions. The one-step comes with an insert, which has the lyrics and the credits, updated credits, and that's it. No extra booklet, no extra accessories, no promo sheet, thank goodness. Everything we listen to is system dependent. I'm in a room that's somewhat bright. Not too bright, but it's a bright room. My system, I have a Hagel H390, good powerful amp. I have an Oppo 205 CD transport that I played the CD on. It sounds incredible. I have a Riga P8 with a Hanna Umami Blue cartridge and Bauer & Wilkins 702S3 speakers, or 703S2. I always get that wrong. But my system tends to be on the bright end. So brightness is something I don't want in any recording, in any release. I did compare the one-step, the 25th anniversary, and the CD. I remember the one-step is the only all analog recording. Played the CD a bunch to begin with. This is a wonderful sounding CD. It's very dynamic. It's very rich. There's no sibilance. You know, I've been reading, someone said the CD has sibilance. I don't experience that, so I don't know. It must be someone's system. This is really well mastered, a compact disc that Chris Bellman apparently did in 1992. And the way this record flows. Now, one thing I will say, thank goodness that this one step is not a 45. I am all off on double 45, especially this sort of album. This album soars, and this album has a feel to it that just flows. And it's not the laziness of changing it, but the whole breakup of these LPs, especially records that were meant to be full-on albums. I mean, first of all, in the CD era, there was no breakup, but even the vinyl era, at least you have a moment of intermission to flip to side from side one to side two. I think, thank goodness they didn't do this in 45 RPM. I know in some cases it's licensing issues that they have to do a 45, and there's discussion and debate about the benefits, the extra thing, but turn your stereo up a little bit if you want those benefits. Again, others will feel differently, and that's fine, a different thing. But this is amazing. Now, I tell you, the 25th anniversary, when I got this several years ago, this is a really amazing sounding record. I thought this was an all analog cut. It is that good, and it just shows that a good digitally mastered cut can sound great. Now, this is an analog recording, so it's amazing that None Such, when they did this record in 2017, they didn't go to the tapes to do an analog cut then. Not quite sure why, but they did an excellent job. And I don't think most people could tell the difference and could say that this wasn't all analog, because it sounds that good. Great dynamics. What's wonderful about this, even though maybe a little more than the compact disc, is the mid-ranges, the mid-range and the bass. Now, it's not boomy, it's not over saturated in bass. It's just a really great transfer and a really great sound that fills my room here. I just love it. Her voice is not one of those high female voices. It's more in the neutral tones, more of a tenor. And she some gets deep, but there's a beauty to her voice that I got here that isn't quite here. Again, if you don't compare it, you're not going to know the difference. And most people don't compare albums back to back. But I went back and forth on tracks and entire sides and segments to play this record. Obviously, I concentrated on Save Me, The Mind of Love, and Constant Craving. That's the big single that is the final track on this. And the way these songs build from the great instrumentation of the acoustic guitars, electric guitars, mandolins, accordions, strings. It is just well layered, so good. And on this version, the 25th version, the way the layers are and that mid-range, it's just a feel-good record in my room. Then I played the one step, and I first went from the first cut and the last cut, all three formats here, all three versions. And then I played it entirely through a couple of times, as I did the other two. I played a lot of this record over the last several days of Katie Lang's Ingenue. Couple things about this. First of all, I think the sound stage is wider, it's bigger, more open. It's very dynamic. It's excellent in that form. I did feel the record's a little brighter for my taste, a little maybe too bright. And one thing that did disappoint me, the only thing that disappointed me, not the brightness so much, because obviously if someone has more of a neutral system, maybe a bigger system, maybe their room is treated much better than mine, this would be the sweet spot for them. I think the one step would be a sweet spot. If your room is treated and not a bright room to begin with, this might be the one. The only issue I had though, especially on The Mind of Love and Constant Craving, and I think it was Still Thrives This Love. I had sibilance on this, especially on The Mind is Love, the S's. Now my cart is aligned perfectly, and I still got those on part of this record. And I've read a couple things since that a couple people have had that, but some people don't. So that is definitely going to be system dependent on here. But again, wider soundstage. I would say I like the mid-range is better on the 25th anniversary version, even though it's a digital record. This is an excellent sounding record. This may have a slighter better overall balance than the 25th anniversary record, but those highs, that's the thing that kind of pushed me off of this. So what's the bottom line, Mazzy, on these between the three? Well, first of all, if you have this compact disc and you're a CD person, you're set. This is incredible sounding CD. I don't know if they did a 25th anniversary CD. I assume Nonsuch did. I haven't heard that. The 20th anniversary vinyl cut is excellent. I love the mid-range. I love the scope of this record. It's a very dynamic record and it has great sound stage. The one step now, the one step. Incredible sounding record. However, if I had the choice now, after hearing all three, I wouldn't have paid $85 or $100 for this record. I would skip it. Now that's based on my personal listening experience in my room. Again, my room is slightly brighter, and for this to be a brighter cut, I certainly don't want to go in this direction. So it wouldn't work for me. If your room is treated, if you have a very well set up system and your room is a deader room, this may be the way to go. However, I would be racking my brain out with that sibilance. You know, I would ripping my hair out with that sibilance if this was the only version I had. I would be, you know, taking out my cart and reinstalling my cart or getting my hi-fi turntable guru to reset it for me and try maybe an MM cart, a cart that maybe isn't quite as bright and open, because that bothered me about this. But the dynamics of this record, the overall soundscape of the one step is probably more open than the other two, but not by a lot. And if you don't compare it, you don't notice that you're missing anything on here. So that's pretty much my take. So in the end, I don't think $100 is worth it for this, for me, for my room, for my taste. I would definitely settle for $35 or so for this version. But I love that they're doing this, and I love they're taking an album. This is a special album. But this is an album that I would have said, Rhino Hi-Fi, $40. That would have been the sweet spot, you know? Even if it's Chris Bellman instead of Kevin Gray. You know, Chris Bellman does excellent cuts, so I'm not quite sure what went wrong with this or why it's on my setup. Really interesting. You know, maybe you could suggest something, but at this point, I'll probably eventually pass this along to someone else because I don't think I need it, but it's a beautifully packaged recording and it's a wonderful record that should be in print, but it should be like this. I wish this was all analog, but maybe, you know, since it's so good, do we need it? So that's my take on Because Sound Matters, the one step. What can I say? Mazzy loves you.